Um,
We're
I'll
gonna
s-
start.
oh, we're going to start? All right, let's talk about some new knives, everybody. Thank you all for joining. Sorry for listening to me rant and all this crazy stuff, but we've got some great new knives today. I was noticing that none of the knives on the table are like a new model, but we have some new variations of existing models. And that's something we tend to see a lot around this time because we saw all of the new stuff that was either ready for the beginning of the year, like Kershaw had for all of their new product, or was announced at SHOT Show and will be available throughout the year. We will see all of that in the future, but for now, we're starting to get some of those variations on the existing models, starting with this Mora Garberg. So the Mora Garberg has been a staple of the bushcrafting world for years now, just because it's a great knife for a great price. So Mora is known for their very cheap knives, the knives that are way cheaper than they have any right to be for how good they are. But they made one where, I mean, one of the known corners that they cut on the cheaper Moras is they do a 3/4 tang. But if you want that full tang, there wasn't really a Mora for you, but now there is here on this Mora Garberg. And other than that, it's a Mora through and through. We got a Sandvik 14C28N blade, so a nice stainless. It's going to be tough, a true Scandi ground edge, and a nice sharp spine for all your scraping stuff. Good sort of clippy drop point profile, a very neutral handle. It has all of the hallmarks of the finished knives we know and love, but it's just, love it. Just great. We love the rambling, don't stop engaging with us. We love the rambling. Man, well, it's the nicest thing I've ever heard. Can I buy them from the Philippines? I hope so. Once again, I really don't know. The law is very complicated. They don't pay me to know the law. They pay me to know the knives. So I can tell you all about the knives, but how you get them is up to you. Anyway, Garberg is great, $77.95. So it's by no means an expensive knife, but it is a little bit pricier than the rest of the Moras. However, you're getting a lot of more attention to detail and premium accoutrement. And for the longest time, the Dutch Bushcraft Knives boys said that the Mora was the best knife for the money. I don't know what their current listing was. This was beat out by the Benchmade Puko, which sadly is discontinued. But that actually leads us nicely to our next subject, is Benchmade discontinued. So every year, Benchmade releases a bunch of new stuff, and they have to discontinue some old stuff so they can maintain everything. And when they discontinue it, MAP is discontinued as well, and we are allowed to sell these on sale. So today we have this shootout here. These are going for $259 on sale, but this is hardly the only Benchmade on sale. I was going to feature the Leicu, which is the brother of the Puko, which beat out the Mora once upon a time. But that Leicu is all sold out now. But there are others that are there. So those fresh new colors they were coming out with that they ran for a limited year, those are all discontinued. So if we still have any of those of the bug outs in stock or the shootouts, as the case may be, those are on sale. As well, we have a Benchmade CLA, as well as the Weekender and Bushcrafter, the original Bushcrafter. The new ones haven't come out yet, but the old ones are discontinued and on sale. So I would recommend picking those up sooner than later because Benchmade on sale is not something we see very often, and when we see it, it goes quick. So if you like these, act now. This one, by the way, $259. I think I might have mentioned that earlier, but what a fidgety little knife. I'm telling you, I used to be like metal, metal, metal. I don't trust the plastics, but I have been very impressed with how I've seen plastics perform. In fact, the owner of the company took his shootout and he drove a bunch of cars over it to see how it held up. It still works fine. The pocket clip was pretty bent, but everything else was working great. Been trying to save for a Benchmade. I'm poor. Ethan White, I get it. The first Benchmade I ever got was with tax returns after I had a child. And I'll tell you, I know a lot of people are like, children are so expensive. They are. But my goodness, are you glad you have them in tax season? I'll just leave it at that. Okay, next up, we have the Buck Knives Deploy that is brand new. So we've seen the Deploy before, but this brand new version has the Wharncliffe blade. And they call it a Wharncliffe. I guess it does have a pretty good point there. When I think of a Wharncliffe, I think a fairly straight edge, a fairly abrupt spine that leads into a point that you could actually puncture with. However, this one has a bit more meat up here. I'd almost say reverse Tanto-like, but it's cool. It's fun. It's easy to sharpen. It's going to give you a nice strong point. It's great all the way around. And this year at SHOT Show, I kind of wish that they were going to mention this in their video we did at the Buck booth when they were talking about this knife. They were saying, it is a tribute to Lord Wharncliffe, using their delicious British accents, which are so fake from Idaho boys. Gotta love it. But what I really like is that they try to do the history of everything they do. And the Wharncliffe, like, I remember my first day at Blade HQ, they were training us like, this is what a Wharncliffe is, this is what it isn't, there you go. And I just took it for granted, but I never thought, who was Wharncliffe? And they did some searching, and my understanding, I'm sure there's some knife historian out there that will correct me here, but Lord Wharncliffe was a nobleman in England in probably the 1800s, who had the idea, well, he wasn't had it, he was at dinner and he was lamenting the dryness of the cutlery industry. He's like, we should come up with a new blade shape. And that night, Lord Wharncliffe cooked up a new blade shape that we now know as the Wharncliffe. And it has stood the test of time, like hundreds of years long. I just lost the comment section, Peter. So, a very interesting thing indeed, the Lord Wharncliffe situation. And I mean, it was invented by some British nobleman hundreds of years ago, but now we find it on modern premium USA-made tactical automatics. Very fun indeed. USA-made 154 cm with a Boss heat treat on it, so you're knowing you're getting every drop of performance out of that steel that you're going to get. And I love this burnt orange. It reminds me of UT, Hook 'em Horns. All you Horns fans out there, let me know. John Thompson, could you do a quick thing on pronouncing Tanto versus Tonto? Tanto. So I'll tell you this. I am many things, but an expert on Japanese language and culture I am not. So here's my rule of thumb. If it is a conventional Japanese Tonto, like we see on their shorter swords, the ones that, I don't know how they carry it, but there's one sword that's called the Tonto, and it does not have that secondary point. I call that a Tonto because I imagine that's how Japanese vowels we say, like Tanto. I seriously don't know Japanese, don't judge me here. But if it's an Americanized Tanto, where it has that secondary point, very tactical looking, I call that a Tanto. That's how I differentiate in my head. I'm certain I'm almost alone, if not completely alone on that subject. So, however you say it, I know what you're saying. If you call it a Tonto, I will understand. If you call it a Tanto, I'll understand. And I think we all understand, and I don't know that it's necessarily wise to get pedantic about how the word is pronounced. The same could be said of buoy versus bowie, or in knots, the bow line versus the bowline versus the bow line. Oh my goodness, people can never agree on how to pronounce anything around here. But yes, I know what you're talking about no matter how you pronounce it. Okay, next up from Reef Knives, we've got the big ol' F6. Now we've seen this one before. We got a CPM 3V blade with this beautiful camouflage Cerakote on there. So I try not to wear camouflage too much because I feel like it looks kind of weeby because I'm kind of a flabby white dude. And I feel like if you're going to wear camouflage, you should be like a hunter or in the military or something that justifies the camouflage. But for me, it would just be a stylistic choice, and I'm not prepared to make that. But I really do like the pattern of camouflage. And you can get it here on the F6. So if you're going to use this as like a hunting knife or something like that, it's going to be a little more subdued, although a lot of hunters like high vis. If you're a hunter out there, let me know, why would you choose an earth tone versus high vis for a knife? I'm really curious about this subject because I feel like you either see it in the OD green foresty thing or in this bright orange that'll glow in the dark. But why? Like, why the strict dichotomy? I'd like to hear that. Flabby white dude dragon, it's a fact. But you know, fatness is happiness. Anyway, these are here. The custom Cerakote job is beautiful. It'll hold up really well. It doesn't have a lot of friction. It has some great wear resistance. However, it does come at a bit of a price. This is going for $429. So save your pennies. That is a very expensive fixed blade, but it is a very premium fixed blade. And this leather, look at that pull up on that sheath. As you slide it in, you can kind of see where the guard of the handle interacts with the sheath. And I love the smell of leather. So delicious. This one's called the F6 Loku from Reef Knives. $429 at Blade HQ. These are dropping this week. I actually grabbed this one off the posting shelf, so it will be done soon. I can't tell you exactly when though. Then, last knife on the table we have is sort of standing in for the entire Blade Show Texas haul. So I did not get to go to Blade Show Texas, and I was very sad because I really wanted to, because the Slip Joint Cartel is awesome and they run that town. Man, do they make some cool stuff. But we did send a buyer and he picked up a bunch of fun stuff, including some new Heretic, like this Stab Nana. Now this Stab Nana is a little special. We've seen this one before. where I think it had a black blade, but this one's got this like milky, yellowy white blade, and they're calling it the freshly peeled stab nana. So it's like a banana, and you hold it, and you're just like, Every time I hold this, I'm sorry, I read comics a lot when I was young, not really young, I still read them too much. But there's a comic called Foxtrot, and there's a guy in it, I think his name's Peter, and he would always have a banana, and every time he'd walk around, he's like got a hoodie, rolled up sleeves, got the banana. And every time I hold this, I'm like, banana, Foxtrot. So, weird things, intrusive thoughts making their way into video. I'm telling you, that's what I love about lives. You always say the dumbest stuff here. Anyway, those are the knives we have. So let's look at these comments for a minute. Buddha says fatness is happiness. I don't know if Buddha said it, but I certainly said it, and I certainly agree. I should probably lose some money, though, or lose some money. I should lose some weight, though, or my liver will not thank me one day. Nice banana, nice karambit blade. I do love me some banana karambits. Stab nana. What a banana of a knife. So I don't know if you guys remember, we used to have a copywriter here named Maya. She made a few videos on here. And every time she'd pick up a knife that had a big curve in it, like a lot of the Bastinelli designs or the, what's his name? Sinkovich, Dmitry Sinkovich designs, who would have them, he would just come up and she would come up and it's like, yeah, this is a cool knife, also banana, every single time. And I wish she was here so I could hand this to her and say, what do you think of this? She's like, oh, it's a cool knife out the front. It's cool they made the curved rail, also banana. That's a great Maya thing to say. I wish I lost weight as easy as I lose mine. Pedro Armstrong, I have never had a more relatable comment.